Hi, I'm Jamie Lee, also known as Zen Living Chick. Welcome to our very first podcast. I'm super excited to have Christine Okezie on as our very first guest. Christine is going to be talking a little bit about what sort of works and what doesn't in terms of diet. And she'll be helping us with what to keep in mind when we're eating and even as far as the thoughts that we think. So welcome, Christine. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Jamie.
Great. So tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so wonderful. So I'm a certified integrative nutrition and lifestyle coach, and I'm also a natural food chef. And I founded my company about 6 years ago, and my business essentially is helping my clients, who are largely women, make peace with food. So, I'm the author of the No Diet Cookbook, the book that came out last year. It's got a bunch of different wonderful sort of amazing, delicious, healthy recipes. But my philosophy essentially is based on when you let go of this dieting mindset and you refocus on some of these key concepts that we'll be talking about today, like the quality of your food and who you are as an eater in terms of not just what you eat, but how you eat and maybe your story about why you eat, right? All these sort of personalized, individualized opportunities to make positive intervention. We all know we're supposed to eat healthy. We probably all know the basics. We should eat some vegetables, eat less processed food, but somehow these solutions are woefully inadequate. So my mission in life essentially is to give you a whole new set of tools when it comes to learning how to take care of yourself and really designing your personalized plan for your best health.
Great. So let's just back up a little bit. So what are some of the trends or some of the issues that you see with women and food today?
Great question. Yeah. So the majority of my clients are fit, by the time they work with me, they've done every diet known to man, basically. They've done all the weight loss, calorie restricted diets. They've done all kinds of injections. They've done all kinds of, sort of very trendy, a lot of stuff that's based on diet and deprivation. Sort of feels very unnatural. A one size fits all approach, whether that's, supplements or whether that's packaged food, or maybe low fat, no fat, high carb, low carb, high protein. It's very confusing. It's very daunting. And that's exactly where it leaves them. So, the research now tells us that the average woman now spends, it turns out, like 45, 50 years of her life dieting. And that's just, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. Think about what we could do with all that angst and energy that we get so sucked into this, huge multi-billion-dollar diet industry. So by the time they get to me, they're struggling with, my metabolism's broken. They've lost and gained the same, 30, 40 pounds, over decades. They're looking for a solution that feels natural. They're struggling with sugar cravings. They're struggling with what to eat. They're struggling with making sense of all the conflicting nutritional information out there, and they're fatigued. They really are fatigued, and they're very sort of discouraged, So I brought my own story, which is, I really thought my sort of best health was behind me after a 60-pound weight gain after the birth of my two kids, which I just couldn't shake for a while, and a health scare. And I really found all the solutions out there with regard to medications, operations, quick fixes. I found them extremely disempowering. So again, my goal is, to help women come from a place where they can actually embrace their bodies and learn to listen to them, learn to honor and truly, truly find out what works for them.
Sure, absolutely. So where do you think most people go wrong?
Great question. So most people go wrong, if we can use that word, by thinking that there is a magic bullet out there. That if I just find the right diet, the right supplement, the right thing to eat or not eat and everything, it's just going to unlock. I mean, I equate it to, I always think that weight loss is like winning the lottery. We always talk about, oh my God, there goes Jane. Look, you hear she lost 30 pounds? I mean, it's so crazy, the stuff that goes on with this, because we really have been taught to believe that it's just, if we find the right thing, if we stop doing all these wrong things, right? So there's that. And then there's the truth of the matter is not one size fits all for everyone. Not all healthy foods are healthy for everyone. So it is very confusing, right? So what might work for one person, while there's obviously some wonderful guidelines we can all benefit from, we need to really deepen into, stop chasing the external, look for root cause. That's kind of what my approach is. It's always looking for the root causation. The weight's there for a reason. And contrary to belief, conventional thinking thinks we're basically a bunch of sloths. We've lost all our willpower, and it's a sedentary lifestyle, you know? And while these are all important factors for sure in terms of how we live now, at the end of the day, it's not our fault. And once we start to kind of really kind of without judgment, with kind of I like to say we relax into weight loss, which is very paradoxical these days. But that really is where people go wrong. People go, we gotta work harder, push harder, I must be doing something wrong. And that just creates the opposite of what we truly, you know, desire.
Sure. And I mean, isn't it true that stress can contribute actually to weight gain? So it's sort of working against people to kind of adopt that mentality of stressing the issue. Is that right?
Oh my God, it's a huge part of what I do. So the stress of dieting makes us fat. There are actually studies that actually show that, you know, when we have stressors in our life, and by the way, that's emotional, physical stressors, everything from insomnia, an undiagnosed food allergy, or just chronic worry. You know, maybe we're caring for a loved one. Maybe we're taking care of aging parents. You know, a lot of my clients are in the sandwich generation. So, or maybe it's just trying to pay the mortgage and balance, you know, work and family. These chronic stressors have created a brand new level of stress in modern day living. And it creates the opposite, as you said, Jamie, the opposite physiology that we need when it comes to optimum calorie burning and fat burning and blood sugar balance and all that stuff. So absolutely. So one of the key teaching points and resources I like to work with is we're going to clean up what you eat. There's lots of choices. We'll figure all that stuff out. That's super important. But how can we drop into the optimum chemistry of weight loss, the optimum biology of weight loss? And that happens to be the opposite of this very stress pedal to the metal living, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that makes so much sense, even just in my own life, you know, going through such a stressful couple years. You know, I've always been the type of person that I could sort of eat whatever I wanted. Nothing ever stuck to me. But then due to stress and sort of pressure and all of these sorts of things, and like you said, worry, I noticed that even the smallest thing, even if it wasn't a fattening thing, didn't stick to me.
Yeah.
So, that was a huge eye-opener for me. So I know you have some great tips for us to, I guess, keep in mind when we're looking to sort of drop weight and get into a healthier lifestyle. So do you want to just start to walk us through some of that?
Sure. So what I weave in and out of my practice is what I call the 7 keys to Your Delicious Balance lifestyle. Your Delicious Balance is actually the name of my business. So the first key essentially is to eat real whole foods. Right? I believe if we focus on the quality of the foods, the quantity, for the most part, is going to take care of itself, right? So when we eat foods that we were so beautifully designed for, that have all their edible parts intact, that creates the perfect balance when it comes to balancing those key hormones, because it's all about the hormones when it comes to metabolism and energy and all that kind of stuff. So eat real whole foods, right? Processed foods are loaded. You know, I always say that, listen, there's no biscotti tree, you know, there's no tortilla chip bush, you know, I mean, you know, it's just, you don't even need a whole lot of like details and scientific stuff to kind of do the analysis, you know.
Sure. So if it doesn't grow in nature that way, then you shouldn't be eating it. And I've also heard if it can go bad, it's good for you. And if it doesn't go bad, it's not good for you.
Oh, beautiful. I love that one. Absolutely. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Okay. We don't want our foods having longer shelf life than us. Exactly.
Makes sense.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So another point is that what you want me to sort of just talk through like some other major ones and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So what are the, you know, and then we can get in a little bit deeper, you know, to some of them, but, you know, what are you said that there were 7 things that people sort of need to keep in mind. So what's number 2?
Eating rhythm. You know, I'm sorry. Well, not necessarily eating rhythm, but basically choose the highest. Well, let's see. Eat real whole foods, and then you know, there's a lot of confusion out there. Are we doing vegan? Are we doing paleo? Are we doing macrobiotic? You know, and I like to say at the end of the day, I'm kind of agnostic when it comes to these things, because if you follow principle 1, you know, for the most part, most dietary systems are based on that. So you're going to do fairly decently, right? But the other one really is to, you know, the other point we want to think about is to honor, your needs beyond honor your nourishment needs beyond your plate. In other words, just as what you're talking about when it comes to stress and everything, you want to talk about, what keeps you from doing what you should be doing to take care of yourself, right? So looking at the fact that it's not just the foods that nourish us that come on our plate, but it's every other part of our life that does. It's really those nourishment needs that sort of make things confusing when it comes to the food that comes on our plate. So that's the stress in career and work-life balance and relationship and money and creativity and education, all that stuff. So I guess looking at that, is another really key point.
Sure. I mean, I know, so many people I know, and even myself at times, I've always made it to maybe the bottom of the priority list. So, work and being a mother and household tasks that I have to do always would come first. And about 2% of my time and energy was focused on myself. And, I know that I had to sort of reshift the thinking in order to kind of put myself almost at that very, very top and what's going to nourish me mentally and physically. And then it was like amazing how much more I was actually able to get done with all the other things that I have on my plate.
On your plate,
if you will.
Absolutely. And that's a great core principle, which at the end of the day is, what if taking care of yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, what if that's the best thing that you can do for those you love? And I like to share that sort of, paradigm shift with my clients who, are juggling a lot. But at the end of the day, again, the clients that I work with, they're busy moms, they're moms who, kids have grown up, they've taken care of everybody. That's been sort of their role and identity. And like you said, sometimes the price is really too high to pay when it comes to taking care of others. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, I would think, and I know again for myself, preparation is key. And a lot of times I know that people make very poor choices because they're not prepared and they're sort of eating, they're starving, they're eating on the go, they're just, whatever's available at the time, or they're not eating enough. I mean, maybe you could talk a little bit about that and how that can actually damage your metabolism.
That's huge. Yeah, great. Thank you. So again, it's the how we eat, right? Who shows up to make these choices. So, underlying thing we talk about is appetite, right? Because when it comes to the diet mindset, it's like, appetite's our enemy. We got to restrict it. We got to conserve it. We got to pop whatever, sort of solution it is to control it, right? But the truth of the matter is, I like to say, appetite is like breathing. In our most natural state, appetite actually is a self-regulating mechanism. So how do I know this? Well, think about, again, you're a mom. Do you remember when the babies were really little, whether they were breastfed or bottle fed, they would just naturally be done, right? They just naturally pull off the bottle. Well, we actually have all of this still within us. Now, as you've mentioned, if we're running on the go, picking people up, dropping people off, trying to get deadlines, we get out of step of our natural rhythm. And so does our appetite. And so do the key hormones that control our appetite. So the hormones that tell us when we're full and the hormones that tell us when we're hungry get a little whacked out, right? And all of this really has to do with what the root, again, looking for a root cause of weight loss issues is blood sugar imbalance. So when we go too far in between meals, our blood sugar gets really low. We get really hungry no matter what we eat, even if it's a semi-decent whole foods choice, it's going to spike that blood sugar. Well, guess what? Chronic dieting, which has us starving and feeding and starving and feeding and skipping and restricting, really wreaks havoc on our blood sugar. So at the end of the day, our body is, set off on this sort of hormonal cascade. Your body thinks it's starving. So what is your beautiful body going to do if it's starving? It's going to store weight, store fat. It's certainly not going to build muscle. It's certainly not going to absorb nutrients, right? At the end of the day, we're just trying to survive. So this is the opposite, again, physiology that we want when we're trying to achieve our natural weight, right? So getting our appetite on our side, being able to allow ourselves to be from a calm place to make good choices. A lot of this, I like to say there's two parts of this. One is make sure you surround yourself with good choices. And, in my book, or in my practice, I have, how to stock a healthy pantry on a budget. We don't need to break the bank here, right? Or do lots of nutritional analysis. But at the end of the day, I like to give people the confidence that if you can get your biology on your side, if you can think about eating real whole foods, right, that have everything your body needs, if you can eat within your body's natural rhythms, look to eat every maybe 3 to 4 hours, right? Just those two principles alone, you won't find yourself so pulled to make those poor quality choices, right? Because your biology will at least be on your side. Now, there's a whole other piece of, the emotional piece, which is important. But just that alone, because we're so self-regulating that way and really know how to work, you'll come from a better place. You'll feel more empowered. And that's what we all want.
Sure, that's great. So, so that's principle 1 and 2. Can you walk me through the next few?
Sure. So another one would be to let go of to let go of perfectionism and focus on the positive. Right. So this also deepens into, when it comes to dieting, again, we're looking for that. If I just get it right, if I really focus now, and if I, and the other thing, so like anything else, women, you're busy, corporate, trying to balance. We're always, faced with perfectionism. We're always like, well, if I can't do it right, then forget it. It's like this all or nothing thing, and we don't really let ourselves focus on all the positive things that we do. I mean, it's really, how many pounds do you lose? If you didn't lose a pound, but say you lost, a half a pound 3 weeks ago or whatever it was, we forget all that. Or if we decided to, do something for ourselves, it doesn't count. Our brain has, you might know this, has a negativity bias. We're always, focused on the negative. Anything, you ask someone how they're doing. Oh my God, the stress I had and something went wrong and he said, she said. We're not focused on the positive. And when it comes to dieting, we can use that word, or at least trying to make positive changes around food, how we take care of ourselves, we need to let go of this perfectionism. There is no perfection. There's no such thing, perfect anything, right? And so this allows us to be more compassionate with ourselves, to relax, to have a greater, more heart-centered perspective on why we're doing what we're doing, right? So that's huge, I think, because that's the mindset, again, that sort of locks us into this yo-yo diet cycle, because we can only sustain that for so long. It just doesn't work.
Absolutely. And I like to call it never enoughism.
Yes,
because
exactly.
Whether it's whatever it is, material wealth, seeking validation out of a relationship, the way you eat or the way that you look.
Yes.
It's like you could achieve a certain goal, but then it's like, well, what else? Where's the next phase? Because there's something deeper going on, and none of these outside things are really going to fix it or solve it. So people tend not to ever be satisfied with themselves or the progress that they're making, even if it's huge progress. And then they sort of give up, and then it's like a spiral, guilt, shame, all of this, and they actually end up going backwards. I've seen that with a number of different scenarios with people. So, I can definitely appreciate what you're saying.
It is. I mean, because, and that's why I'm so, passionate about, we have to let go of this dieting mindset, because diet by definition has come to mean, piles of shame, piles of self-loathing, piles of never enoughness, Yeah. So it's a huge thing when we stop attacking our bodies and attacking the weight. They need our attention. Our body is giving us all kinds of signs and symptoms all the time. And instead of sort of trying to ignore or judge or run away, we need to kind of take a step back and go, okay, I'm listening, right? And right there, that shift takes us out of that stress response, puts us into, again, the optimum state of physiology. So yeah, that's huge. Letting go of perfectionism and focusing on the positive.
Sure, absolutely. So what else can you tell us, that people should keep in mind? I mean, how important is it to eat organically?
That's great. So again, what we want to do is seek the highest quality food. Like I said, I'm agnostic. I like, the term, it's not my term, but the term is qualitarian. So again, when I'm talking about qualitarian, we can talk about the role of organics, or the role of, again, foods that create health for our body, that actually promote health and don't tax it so much. So we have, billions of chemicals, pesticides, most of them untested actually, that go into our food supply. So keeping the chemicals off our plate by choosing organic is huge. We can't control a lot of things, but we can certainly, for the most part, when we go to the supermarket, the farmer's market, make some good choices there to create less work for our immune system. One of the key underlying causes of all the issues I work with regard to specifically weight loss is inflammation, right? So inflammation, one of the key sources there is environmental toxicity. And we got to sort of be mindful that we just weren't designed to process all this junk, right?
Sure.
So yeah, organics, wild-caught fish for the same reasons. If you do animal protein, of course, grass-fed beef, things like that, organic chicken. EWG is my greatest resource, environmentalworkinggroup.org. You don't have to break the bank. You can focus on stretching that dollar for your organic food, in a small
Well, that's
way.
what I was going to say. Everybody's like, well, you have to eat organic, and I certainly agree. It's extremely important, especially when it comes to meat and your produce, but, it's like expensive, let's be honest. A lot of people, the average American, can't afford to just go to Whole Foods or shop 100% organic, especially for a family. So can you offer some tips of, how to do that a little bit more cost effectively, or if there's some way to cut a corner, sort of how to apply this to the mainstream?
Right. How do we make good choices, right? So at the end of the day, this is where, again, we kind of have to relax into this process, not get caught up in too much of the, the demagoguery that goes around this. While I believe there are very, very, very important reasons for doing organics, personal and planetary, what you're talking about is how do we translate this so people just at least can move forward in the direction of health, right? Healthy eating. So if you're going to eat more fruits and vegetables, organic or not, I just want you to eat more fruits and vegetables, right? More whole foods, more home-cooked meals with meat and vegetables and chicken and fish and all that, beans, nuts, seeds, all that stuff. Again, whole foods, right? So again, I always go back to principle number one. So if you can't afford organic, I don't think that should be your blockage. Oh, I can't afford organic kale, so I just want to eat kale, right? No, eat the eat the kale, conventional kale.
Out.
That's right. Exactly. Because at the end of the day, you got to do the, the plus minus. And food, well, again, principle that I say is, food is powerful medicine. A lot of it also has to do with your unique self. So if I always say, if you're eating all the quinoa and grass-fed beef and broccoli and all this stuff, but you're a stress case, right? You're in a soul-sucking job, in a toxic relationship, just really, really in sort of a bad place. It's not going to do it for you. You know what I mean? So it's always looking for balance. There's always a way. It's never all or nothing. So never organics, like, oh, forget it. I guess I'll just have to eat frozen food now. There's so much in between. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. So you just mentioned that, you can totally change your eating habits, but let's talk a little bit about the emotional aspects. I know a lot of people are emotional eaters, or when they get upset and stressed, they don't eat at all, which can totally wreak havoc on your metabolism. So, how do we kind of shift the mindset or get into a place of making better choices with regard to our relationships, the thoughts that we think? What are some practical tips that people can do sort of immediately in their lives to kind of shift that a little bit?
Okay. So when it comes to food and just what you talked about, where our unwanted behaviors show up due to stress, or due to conflict, it's in overeating or it's in craving foods, like sugar cravings, nighttime eating, things like that. So here's what I like to do. I like to say, we practice sort of hitting the pause button. We practice sort of taking a little time out, because it's when things go on autopilot, right? When things we do, 95% of what we do is habitual, apparently. So let's slow the process down and bring awareness to what's really going on when I get triggered, right? To have, to start foraging late at night, or to binge on the office cookie platter or things like this, right? At the end of the day, there's a moment, and all it takes is a moment to sort of go. And oftentimes breathing, is what I encourage. Take, a few deep cleansing breaths to sort of reset and trigger that physiological stress response away, right? And you sort of ask yourself these questions. What is it that I really need? What am I thinking and believing right now, right? what would be the kind choice here? What does my body really need? And when you ask these sort of open-ended questions, or at the same time acknowledge, what am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling worried. I'm feeling restless. I'm feeling anxious, you know? And literally all of this process, essentially, this is the conscious awareness. Because if we want to shift behaviors, shift habits, we have to make them conscious. 95% of what we do is unconscious, okay? And food, you know, has arguably become very unconscious because we eat and we don't really think about it, right? But that doesn't necessarily serve us if we have unwanted behaviors, right? So slowing things down, taking a deep breath, asking those questions, getting really in touch with what is it that you're feeling. So maybe it's worry, maybe it's anger, maybe it's restlessness, right? So instead of trying to stop that feeling with a food, with a cookie or with a sugar or whatever it is that we want to numb out, check out, make it stop, right? I actually invite people to slow it down and let that feeling happen. And it's an amazing thing. You know, you're in this wonderful world of mindfulness meditation. But feelings, you know, have a beginning, middle, and end. And when it comes to dieting deprivation, you know, we're told to just we give us the tools they've given us in regard to the shame and the guilt, all that locks these feelings in. But when we allow them to be, again, it's a process of really getting in touch with what is it that you truly need. And it might be a hot bath, it might be a cup of tea, it might be a walk in nature, it might be calling a friend, right? It's a way to shift behavior away from more wholesome choices.
Sure. And I bet most people don't even ask themselves. I know that I didn't for a long time, most of my life, that they don't even ask themselves, am I hungry? Am I eating because I'm actually hungry? Or like you said, it's all of these other reasons, or that it's an unconscious sort of binge eat. I know if I'm working late at night and I could have a bag of popcorn right next to me, I don't even realize. And I'm just, you know, sort of on autopilot. And I turn around, the bag of popcorn is gone. So I think sometimes, you know, it becomes just a reflex versus a question, you know, to your point.
Exactly. Yes, I like that. Yes, the reflex. We need to insert just a little pause button in there so that we can decide, you know, and this is what this, again, railing against the diet mindset. My intention is always to show we have so many choices to bring balance to our health, bring balance to our bodies, so many more choices than we've been led to believe. Really amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So where can folks get more information about, you know, your book and your services? And if you can just sort of leave us with a couple final thoughts as folks sort of roll into lunchtime or approaching dinner time.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Well, my website is www.yourdeliciousbalance.com. And you can learn all about my approach there. And I have an office in Montvale, and I'm in the community a lot. So I do a lot of cooking classes and public speaking as well. So I hope you visit that. I do have a newsletter you're welcome to sign up for. And my book is available on Amazon, or you can visit the website, thenodietcookbook.com. So let's see, big tip as we roll into our next main meal. Okay. Here's a good one that sort of embodies everything, you know. So what I'd like you to do is, before you decide it's time for lunch, right, take 3 or 4 deep cleansing breaths, or dinner, right, and then bring yourself to this place and ask yourself, what am I hungry for, right? And from there, I think you can make really, really good choices. You know, what does my body need? What is the kind choice, right? So I hope that embodies what I'm talking about, which essentially is, you know, your body is your business. Your body is always there for you, right? So isn't it time that we let go of all the judgment and deprivation that we've been told needs to be the way to true health, and start to embrace it with more compassion and curiosity? And from there, like I said, we're just so beautifully designed. You know, we're ripe for taking off. So.
Sure, absolutely. And I'd just like to add to that, and I'm sure you would agree that, you know, drinking enough water. It sounds so simple, but I think sometimes we overeat because we're dehydrated. And really, if we just had a nice glass of water and maybe add a little lemon or lime, that it would kind of do it for us. It doesn't sound like it would. However,
it's key. You know. Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. And everybody can make that one change, right? So swap out whatever liquid may be that's not so serving you and make some space for something your body was designed for.
Awesome. Well, I love it. And thank you so much for being a fabulous first podcast guest. I look forward to having you on again. And we'll definitely be, promoting your article on the Zen Living Magazine website. And I wish you a happy and healthy day.
Thank you,
Thanks
Jane.
for joining us.
All right. Take care now. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.